These seems highly inappropriate.
That can't be your first question, Ryan. I mean, you were about to tell me what you have, and so I'm happy to listen.
I mean, I have the message.
You said you talked to Stephanie.
I have copies of the text messages.
And what is it that Stephanie would like to do about this?
I'm asking you, was this appropriate?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. Do you regret sending these messages?
I'm not going to comment on that. What would Stephanie like to do about this? Are you unwilling to answer that question?
She told me that she feels that it's a double standard. She said if an average person out there that sent messages like this, she believes it was sexual harassment, they'd be out of a job. She feels like you're not going to be charged criminally. You did nothing criminally wrong.
Did she say I did anything professionally, ethically wrong?
Yeah.
She thinks I did?
Yeah.
Does she recall getting a response from OLR?
I was going to ask you, what is...
I'm sorry, you didn't answer that. Does she recall getting a response from OLR?
I don't know the answer to that question.
You're telling me that she didn't tell you that OLR said there was no violation?
Okay.
Is that what you're telling me?
The OLR wouldn't tell me that.
Did Stephanie tell you that?
No, she didn't.
Okay. OLR, and that's the point, because that's the confidential part. Because as you know, I'll tell you generally and hypothetically what OLR does. If OLR receives a complaint, and if OLR finds that it's not even worthy of an investigation, then OLR not only lets everybody involved know about that, but they also... Is there a reason you're taking pictures of me?
Yeah, this is a news event.
No, this isn't an event, Ryan. This is a non-news story, okay? And I would prefer that you not take any pictures of me. If OLR finds that there's no violation, it's confidential. You know that. No lawyer can tell you about this. You know that. Whoever fed this story to you, whoever fed this story to you has a personal agenda. You know that. You know you're being used.
I do not know that, and
who fed you the story, Ryan? Let's see how honest you're going to be with me.
Public records. I have the police report.
Who asked you to look at this? Who asked you to look at it?
I have public documents.
Who asked you to look at it, Ryan?
We don't reveal our sources.
Yeah, why?
I have public documents.
Are you going to be honest with me, Ryan? Are you going to tell me who fed you this story and wanted a personal agenda advanced? Are you going to tell me that? Are you going to tell me that?
No one fed me anything. I'm a reporter. I find out about things.
Nobody fed you this story? Nobody said, you should look at Chilton and a case from a year ago, just out of the blue. When you talked to DOJ last Friday and you quoted them in your story about the stem cell case, and that's the day you learned about this, that's not just a coincidence, right? It's not a coincidence that all of a sudden this comes up. Go ahead. I want to hear how honest you're going to be.
DOJ all the time. The story's not about me. I'm not a public official. I'm not a prominent.
I asked you, and we're on the record.
District attorney.
Did any of this come from DOJ? Was it fed you by DOJ at all?
I told you.
Was it or
I
not,
have public
Ryan?
documents. I'm not going to reveal any sources.
Why won't you tell me whether DOJ fed you this? Whether you think that this is a personal, embarrassing attach. I want to know if they fed you the story and told you to look into it. That's what I asked you. And you're sitting here and you won't answer me.
I don't have to. I'm not a public.
Okay. I'm going to answer, by the way, hear your answer. You're going to hear a lot of those that I don't have to answer that. I am going to give you the OLR that there was no violation.
Okay.
If you're going to do a story, you can decide whether or not you are going to include that in your story.
I will. That was one of my questions.
That's perfect.
What the status of all that is.
I can't believe, and you can put this on the record. I don't know who wants you to do this non-story. It wasn't Stephanie. I'm telling you that right now. Stephanie didn't contact you in Madison, Wisconsin to do this story.
She spoke to me.
She spoke to you after you got her address and after you found out where she lived.
And she's still clearly upset.
Mr. Foley, there's only one other agency that knows about this. If you want to sit there and lie to me, lie to me.
I'm not.
You told me on the phone, obviously not anybody from DOJ. If you want to lie to me, go ahead, Mr. Foley.
I didn't tell you that. I said I don't reveal.
You said obviously not.
Documents.
I asked you if DOJ fed this to you. You said obviously not. Wrote it down that you said obviously not. You want to lie to me, Mr. Foley?
I'm not lying to anyone.
Okay. I'm going to ask you again. Did DOJ feed you this story?
No. I told you.
Did you speak to either Mr. Kosh,
I got
Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Potter, or anybody from DOJ, and did they ask you to look into this story? Are you going to answer that question?
Are you going to give me your side of the story? Because I'm not being interviewed here. I'm not.
Are you going to answer that question?
I'm a reporter. I don't have to. I told you. I've talked to the victim. I have the police report from Kaukauna. I have the text messages.
You're willing to be
How is
used,
this-
Mr.
how-
Foley. You're willing to
why did I come up here to-
for them to.
I'm getting.
Are you on DOJ's payroll?
I'm getting your side.
Are you willing to advance their public or professional or political agenda? Is that what you're here for?
I'm here to get your side of the story.
It's an agenda, Mr. Foley. You know that. You're advancing somebody's personal agenda, and you're cool with that. You're okay with
No,
that.
I'm not.
You are so cool with that from a year ago that you think this is news because they say, hey, Ryan, why don't you look into this case? This is something sweet. Maybe we can divert it from what's going on here in DOJ. Maybe you won't look at the stem cell stuff. Maybe whatever. Why don't you go look at KRATZ and dig this thing up? Where nobody, without being fed the entire story, would have access to that. You don't deny that?
Explain why this is not a story, sir. You are.
Because there is no criminal violation
Right.
and there is no OLR violation.
But was this appropriate behavior?
I'm not answering that question.
Well,
OLR says it was not a violation.
Well,
that's the
not
answer
being
I'm
a
giving you.
violation is different than being something that.
That's the answer I'm giving you.
Okay.
It was not a violation.
Okay.
I'm going to see the guts you have if you're going to say who fed you this story in the story. Who asked you to look into it? It's going to be, it's hilarious.
Now
Now that I know what kind of reporter you are and that you're willing to be used, that will dictate the rest of this interview. Go ahead. Is it Mr. Van Hollen's political agenda? Is that who wants to be advanced here? I'm going to ask them, by the way, if they released this confidential information. I'm going to ask them.
I told you all I have. I called the Kaukauna
Somebody
police.
told you about this, Mr.
That's
Foley.
a public record. The Kaukauna
Somebody told. Kaukauna called you?
police. I said they called me. I said they released the information.
Somebody told you about it, Mr.
Reporters,
Foley.
we find out about things all the time. I've been a reporter for 6 years in the state. I've covered your cases before.
Really? What have you learned about me, Mr. Foley? About me and crime victims? What have you learned about me?
Well, I know
That I treat crime victims like this? Is that what you learned?
these messages. It looks like that.
Is that's what you've learned about me and crime victims?
I
You haven't learned that I've been
Well, I learned-
the chairman of the Crime Victims' Rights Board, that for 15 years I've not only advocated for, but I wrote the law on crime victims in Wisconsin.
Right.
You didn't learn about that. So
I did.
So you would embarrass me personally and professionally, despite the findings of OLR, because you want to advance somebody else's political agenda. You will do that, right? That's what you're saying. Whoever fed this to you, garnering favor with them
If this
is
a
more...
non-story. Why are you so worried that I'm going to write about it?
Because it's my reputation, and once the genie's out of the bottle,
Right.
despite OLR looking into it and saying there's no basis for a violation, when that genie leaves the bottle, most reputable reporters say, I'm not reporting it, because OLR says there's no violation. Most reputable reporters do that. Not ones that are willing to be on somebody else's payroll or agenda or advance their
I'm paid
agenda.
by the Associated Press, the world's largest news organization. I've written, I've covered politics in the state. Well, I'm curious. Let's see the OLR report. On what basis did they?
You don't get to see that. Ask OLR for it.
They don't. I did.
Ask
They said they can't
Stephanie
comment.
Grohl for it. Van Grohl. She has it. Ask her for it. Ask her for the report that says there's no violation. Ask her for that. She has it. You must have asked her. You must have asked her, wasn't this reported to OLR, and what was the response? You sat here and lied and said, gee, I didn't get that from her, but you must have asked her that. You're a reporter, right? That'd be the first question out of your mouth. Didn't you know that there was no violation, Stephanie? Didn't you know that when you reported this that there was no violation? Yes, Mr. Foley, there was no violation. But because you contacted me, I've got to make a statement because somebody in Madison wants you to dig into this. It sickens me, Mr. Foley, because, let me just tell you why, and I'm not being mean, but because this has been investigated by 2 different agencies who both found no violation.
That's why I'm coming up here to get your side of the story. I'm glad that you're pointing this out.
Don't soft talk me.
I'm not soft talking you.
Okay. Don't say that you want my side of the story because you've decided to already run the story where most reputable reporters would not run the story. To preserve the reputational interests of the lawyers when OLR says there's no violation. You get that concept, of course, that when it's investigated and they say there's no violation, that you don't do the hatchet story. Because you don't do it because it tries to preserve the reputational interests of lawyers that cooperate and there's no basis for a violation. That's why those stories aren't ever done. But somebody wants you to do it. Somebody wants you so badly to do it that they fed you all of those facts. They won't confirm it on the record because they are cowards. Will they confirm it on the record, Mr. Foley? No. Why? Because DOJ and their lawyers, which, let's just say hypothetically, that DOJ during this investigation said, we assure you that we will not release this publicly. Let's assume they hypothetically said that. Now let's assume they need you. Let's assume they need some publicity for something. And then let's assume they fed this story to you. You want to use whatever word you want. Let's assume they fed this story to you, despite those assurances. What does that mean to you, Mr. Foley? Anything? Obviously not. It's not you, it's not your family, it's not your reputation. Right? It's not your reputation. In small Chilton, we're not talking about Milwaukee or Madison, in small Chilton where something that just the allegation of can ruin a local prosecutor. You don't care about that, and here's why you don't. Because now that you know that there's no violation, now that you know OLR said there's no violation, you're still predisposed to write a story.
Did you send these text messages?
I'm not answering that question.
Okay. Because that's news.
Really? According to who?
According to the Associated Press.
Okay. So that means...
Is it okay for a prosecutor...
I'm not answering, is it okay for?
Well,
I'm answering whether OLR believes that's a violation.
There's difference between a technical violation or a criminal violation and appropriate
Who told you that?
I'm saying that. I just know that I'm a reporter. Why are you so worried about the story getting out if there's nothing here?
Oh, come on. Why are you so worried about an OLR violation having been alleged and they find no violation? Why would OLR keep it confidential? Don't you think they're worried about reputational interests of the lawyers too? I'm worried about it because of my reputational interest. I'm worried about it because of my 25 years as a prosecutor. That's why I'm worried about this story. I'm worried that a reporter would be willing to be fed a story like this and go with it. I'm worried that you didn't get this from Miss Van Grohl. I'm worried about this young woman. I'm wondering if you're going to name her, by the way. If you're going to use her name.
She gave an interview on the record.
She is willing to give her name out there.
Yes.
Did she tell you how many text messages she sent me?
I have those too.
Good. So she told you she sent 23 text messages.
Many one-word answers.
Right. Okay. What's your next question, Mr. Foley? Do you have one?
Now, yeah, I have learned a lot about you. You mentioned your past as, crime victims advocate.
Chairman, Crime Victims' Rights Board.
Yeah, absolutely. You did help establish that. 1998, I believe.
I was the only chairman since 98, between 98
Right.
and December of 09.
Have you stepped down from that board?
I resigned from that board in December of 09.
Okay. Why did you do that?
I'm not answering that. I will give you the correspondence, my resignation correspondence from them that I will release.
Okay.
That I'm happy to release.
Okay. Why did you step aside from the Shannon Conitzer prosecution?
There was a conflict of interest.
Okay. What was that conflict?
I don't have to answer, nor will I. And you might want to add, as you're writing things down, because my understanding from Supreme Court Rule 22, excuse me just a second, let me just grab this. Supreme Court Rule 22.40, subsection 1, that these matters in any investigation therein remains confidential.
Yeah, but you're free to speak about it.
If I wanted to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
And other people are free to speak about it.
other people?
Well, person who made the complaint.
Let's see who's going on the okay.
I'm just saying. So
I'd like to see
So
if
it's
Ms.
not-
Van Grohl or somebody else, other people, are going to speak about this. Tell me what quotes you have about the OLR complaint. Do you have any quotes about that?
I have
Other
got a
than
lot
from me?
you. And I'm hoping to actually look at
You
it.
have a
And-
lot from me.
Well, saying that OLR cleared you, yeah.
No. Saying that the matter remains confidential and telling you that hypothetically, if they found that there was no violation, that they would not verify or release any information. That's what I told you.
You said OLR. You said repeatedly that OLR found no violation.
We're done. If you want to trick me into
I'm
saying,
not tricking. I have it on tape.
you're using me for the confirmation. Mr.
I am
Foley.
not using you for the
Because you have
confirmation.
nobody else that will confirm that there is an OLR complaint. Will you? Or do you?
I'm not.
Do you have somebody that will confirm that there's an OLR complaint?
No, I don't. Because OLR won't say that.
So when I asked you, are you using me to confirm that? And you sat there and said
I
no.
thought you said the case, the whole overall case.
I know what I'm dealing with, Mr. Foley. I see it. Okay? I see advancing a political agenda when I see it. When it sits in front of...
What's the political agenda?
Who told you about this, Mr. Foley? That's the political agenda. Follow it. Follow it back to who told you that you should write a story about this. You're not that dumb, Mr. Foley. You've been doing this long enough.
What's the
You've been doing this long enough.
I don't understand what the political agenda.
I don't either. But you should figure it out. You should figure out why DOJ wants you to write a story about this. Figure it out. How hard is that? Did you ask that question when they told you? When whoever leaked this to you, when they told you, did you ask why? Why? What agenda? How does this help you if I run this? Did you ask that question? You know what you're going to say to me? No. Because you don't care. You don't care why. You don't care why they wanted you to write this story. You should. You should care why. You should know why you're being used.
I'm not being used.
You should ask that question, shouldn't you, Mr. Foley? You should ask that question, why do you want me to run this on Ken KRATZ? What personally happened between Ken and J.B. Van Hollen? What personally happened? If they want to personally, not professionally, personally embarrass him. What personally happened? Do you know? Mr. Foley? Do you know the history? Do you know why J.B. Van Hollen wants this run? Do you?
I don't know if J.B. Van Hollen wants this run. I don't know what is the history.
Look, nobody in that office, this is off the record, nobody in that office can shit